Former Governor John Hickenlooper is going to avoid a legislative audit of the funds that are being used to defend him from an ethics investigation. His fellow Democrats voted down that proposal by Republicans today. Those Republicans wanted the state's Legislative Audit Committee to look at whether it's appropriate to use funds from a 2003 tax bill that was designed to stimulate the economy after 9/11. The request was denied on a party line vote. Money came from the Jobs and Growth Tax Relief Reconciliation Act. Hickenlooper is accused of violating state ethics law during travel that he took last year. The State Ethics Commission has tentatively set a hearing for that complaint in March. The shakeup continues at the Arapahoe County Clerk's office. Clerk Joan Lopez has acknowledged the community's frustration over the handling of the November election, and now her deputy overseeing elections is leaving that role. And Lopez's spokeswoman is out as the clerk refuses to speak to journalists. Marissa Chamberlain's leaving her deputy director of elections job, stepping down to a manager's job, and spokeswoman Wyndham McLaren is out entirely. Clerk's office would not comment for the reasons behind either move. Clerk Lopez, who's a Democrat, is facing an ethics complaint for campaign spending. Republicans have long accused her of partisanship, and Lopez was unable to explain in an interview on Next how she would ensure fair elections. The two Coloradans on the House Intelligence Committee in Washington again today illustrated the different worlds that the two parties are living in when it comes to the facts of the impeachment inquiry. First, Republican Congressman Ken Buck of Windsor alluded to a debunked conspiracy theory about Ukrainian meddling in the election, and then pivoted to the fact that some Ukrainian leaders didn't like then-candidate Donald Trump.
Isn't it true that President Trump had a legitimate reason to request help from the Ukraine about the 2016 election? And I'm not suggesting for a minute that Russia didn't interfere. Of course they interfered. But the Ukraine officials tried to influence the election.
Yes.
Democratic Congressman Joe Neguse then tried to draw a distinction between Russian election meddling and some Ukrainians not liking Trump. Neguse first asked the Democrats' counsel testifying there, and then the Republicans.
Zero intelligence agencies have publicly stated that Ukraine attacked our elections in 2016. Is that right?
That's right. I don't even think that the minority is alleging that the Ukrainian government systematically in any meaningful way interfered. I think this is just based on a couple of news articles.
Mr. Castor, correct?
The president had a good faith belief there were some significant Ukrainian officials.
I hear you, and you've said that previously. I guess I'm asking you.
We haven't said that the Ukrainian government.
And there are no intelligence agencies in the United States that have publicly stated that Ukraine has attacked our elections, right? You're not testifying that that's the case?
I'm not, right, correct.
Right.
So Republicans are looking to prove that the president, even if he was mistaken, thought that Ukrainians were seriously meddling in the election, and that sparked his interest in corruption in that country, and hence excuses his request for Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden and his son. Democrats say that President Trump was just abusing his power for political gain. Congressman Scott Tipton now faces a Republican primary challenge. It's coming from his right, from Lauren Boebert, a gun rights activist who owns a restaurant in Rifle where the waitstaff is armed. She's already receiving attention from national conservative media, and she stopped by Next today. Your campaign announcement didn't mention Congressman Tipton by name. It did spend quite a bit of time and space attacking Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. You run against her, or you run against Scott Tipton?
I'm absolutely running against her. So there is a social narrative that is taking over our country. There's a battle for the heart and soul of our country right now. And I am ready to be the one that steps up for conservative values and takes on AOC. What made me decide to run for Congress, what made me decide, Lauren, it's time to mount up, was when I heard my congressman say that he was on a committee with Maxine Waters as a chair, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is on that committee, and Rashida Tlaib was on that committee. And this is the new world that we live in, and they direct the ship. And I said, why aren't you directing the ship? Why aren't you the captain?
He doesn't lead that committee. Maxine Waters leads that committee because she's in the majority and Republicans are in the minority. If you were to beat Congressman Tipton, that's just a Republican for a Republican, so that doesn't get you any closer to a Republican majority.
I believe that he could be active and let the people of Colorado know what's going on.
Do you disagree at all with Congressman Tipton on Second Amendment issues?
Well, I don't. I know that I'm an advocate for freedom. I'm an advocate for personal responsibility. I am an advocate for the United States Constitution. My advocacy for the Second Amendment is the same as it is for the First and the 10th. I intend to annihilate socialism, deregulate America, and secure the Constitution.
Do you believe that it was appropriate for President Trump to ask a foreign government to investigate a political rival?
There's going to be a lot of time for policies. And right now, I would just love, I think we're just making this too difficult. This is really simple, and we are announcing my campaign. We just started. I'm going to have a lot of time to talk about policy and everything that's going on in America and in Colorado and how I'm going to represent everybody.
Would you accept foreign assistance in your run for Congress?
I don't even know the laws of that, and I have no intention to. I am all about American first.
My full conversation with Lauren Boebert, challenging Congressman Scott Tipton in a Republican primary to represent Colorado's Western Slope, is posted on the next YouTube channel. The VFW's mission is pretty simple: to help veterans however it can. The Post on Broadway says it has been struggling to the point that they're selling the building. When our Anusha Roy looked into why that's happening, she found it's not an isolated incident.
This has been home for VFW Post 2461 for around 60 years.
It was a sense of kinship, I guess you could say.
A lot has changed in that time, including who is choosing to walk through these doors.
You'd have this younger generation coming in, and it'd be like my father and I wanting to do the same thing together, and it didn't always happen.
Bruce Dolan, a Vietnam veteran with the VFW, wasn't surprised. This post was running out of money to keep the lights on and turned to Win King to ultimately put the building at Arkansas and Broadway up for sale.
We're member participation, having difficulty getting enough of a quorum to vote on certain things.
They want to get out in the community and help the community, and they want to do something that would try and cut back on all of these suicides. They're just not getting any better.
Business Den was the first to say the building sold for just over $2 million.
This was a very lucky location.
That tells a bigger story than just generational differences. Social media has created an online community so veterans don't need to come here in person to be helped by the VFW. Plus, combat has changed, and technology like drones can mean fewer boots on the ground. And that also means fewer people may be eligible to join the VFW, according to the commander for this post. In the last 15 years, Colorado dropped from 120 to 94 post locations.
I'm seeing the numbers go down probably 7, 8, maybe even 10 years ago.
But just because a building has been sold a week ago doesn't mean this post is vanishing.
And I can see the younger people coming in and, taking over and doing good. And I think 5 years, maybe even 10 years from now, things will be fine.
So veterans who were meeting on Broadway will be now going to another post location in Denver. That is until they figure out their long-term plans. Now, how the other posts are doing is really varying across the state. Up north, they're doing better with their membership. In the northwest corner, the participation is so-so, and the southwest part of Colorado at this point is holding pretty steady, and that's kind of been the trends over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. For folks who have driven Broadway for years, know that post. It's an iconic building. What happens there now?
Yeah, so the person who bought it has been investing along that corridor and said it could be turning into a restaurant or a bar. He hasn't decided yet, but he really wants to keep the mural that we've all driven by and wants to maintain some of the character and the history of that building.
I think people would appreciate that. All right, thank you, Nusha. Comcast and Dish customers have been blacked out from Nuggets and Avalanche games for more than 3 months now. Our next question comes from a fan named Randy, who wrote to us wondering why Altitude Sports doesn't just stream the games for a monthly fee. Randy, we've had that question too. And our Steve Stager elicited what I think is the first clear answer that we have heard from Altitude and Kroenke Sports. During their online town hall last week, Steve pointed out that there are a ton of other hockey teams streaming their games. An Altitude representative acknowledged that they could do it, but streaming alone would not bring in enough revenue if they're not on cable and satellite providers, which would bring in a lot more cash. Leave your car at an expired parking meter? Instant ticket. Block the sidewalk with snow for weeks, and you get a warning. A Denver City Councilman questions the city's double standard. There's a tool that forecasters use to let them look inside winter storms. So what happens when it's down for maintenance? Our man Corey Reppenhagen explains next. Imagine blocking a parking meter for weeks and only getting a citation on your car, a warning on your car, instead of a citation. Well, that's what happens if you block people from walking around in Denver after a storm. Just leave snow on your sidewalk, and you will get a strongly worded letter. No ticket. A city councilman who relies on the sidewalk to get around tells our Marshall Zellinger this city needs some citation equity.
It's understandable some sidewalks would be snow-covered after a storm. Not everyone can shovel right away. But this video is from today, 2 weeks after our major Thanksgiving week snowstorm.
I met with Public Works as recently as last Friday, and the response was use 311.
Denver City Councilman Chris Hines has to use the same system you do to complain about unshoveled sidewalks.
In some ways, I respect that. We shouldn't have a process where some people are more equal than others.
He's used the city's app, Pocket Gov, and 311 to report unshoveled sidewalks and sidewalk ramps for his mobility in a wheelchair. Today, the city's Department of Community Planning and Development confirms you called 311 on 1,439 addresses for not shoveling the sidewalk. 657 of those calls resulted in an inspector seeing an unshoveled walk. But each property owner got a warning first, not a ticket.
You know, if we're going to prioritize pedestrians over all other forms of transit, and that's our guiding document, then let's put our citations where our mouth is, or put our tickets where our mouth is, so to speak.
Of those 657 that were warned about their unshoveled walkways, 36 ended up with tickets, 246 shoveled. 375 still need to be re-inspected.
On the one hand, with cars, we're issuing a lot of tickets, but on the other hand, with sidewalks and when it comes to pedestrians, it doesn't seem that we're issuing any or hardly any citations.
Well, it's up to the inspector's discretion, I found out just about an hour ago, if they want to issue a warning or a citation in a future storm. So don't go out there thinking, I'm going to go 4 storms in a row, wait for that warning, and maybe Mother Nature will take care of it and I'll never have to pay a ticket. It will be up to that inspector, perhaps, if they want to ticket you for that equity.
Okay, so we've firmly established that human decency is not going to solve this problem. What's the reason for the warning? I mean, again, if it's discretion, they could just choose to exercise their discretion and say, you know what, a ticket would wake this person up.
Chris Hines tells me that one of the discussions is, what if the homeowner moves and you have a new homeowner, a new property owner? Should they be held liable for the previous discretion or indiscretion of the previous owner? So, because you can't look up property records, apparently. If you go to the home, oh, how do we know it's not Joe Smith's home still? Let's warn them instead.
That's believable. That's what that is. All right. Thank you, Marshall.
Our Monday storm is out of here. It's clear, it's cold with less wind, about 2 to 6 inches of snow in the high country. Not much snow for Denver, but about 25 degrees colder than yesterday, and a lot of you noticed that. There are a few leftover snow showers coming through on the northwest flow on the backside of this system, which is well to the east of us. There's a low in the Midwest, and there's a low that's moving south of us. We're kind of sandwiched in between those two storms, but high pressure becomes our dominant weather feature, and with it keeping the jet stream to the north, we have a few leftover snow showers in the northern mountains, but no advisories for travel. A cold, calm night in Denver, a sunny, warmer day statewide tomorrow, and that means better travel I-25 and I-70. Tonight, partly cloudy, less wind, and a low of 20. That's where we start tomorrow morning. Sunshine and 42, a seasonal high. We'll look for quiet weather till the end of the week, then a stray rain or snow shower possible Friday night. Scattered snow showers Saturday. A second front comes in Sunday, so Sunday, the colder of the 2 weekend days, and then clearing and chilly on Monday. Another great, it's either sunrise or sunset, and it's just beautiful shots that are coming in this afternoon from South Park. Lori Spear with this one tonight.
Denver's Doppler radar is down this week, so local forecasters are resorting to the backup support, a rare look at the heart of that system. And it's a sign that's up for interpretation, though it probably should not be. Next.
Having a pretty quiet week of weather. So the National Weather Service is like, now, do it now. They're going to shut down our Doppler radar for service. Timing, I suppose, is everything. But I would also imagine that puts people like our meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen in somewhat of a bind.
It kind of looks like a giant golf ball teed up for a drive. but this is actually the National Weather Service radar for northeast Colorado, located in Watkins. Meteorologists rely on this radar to provide life-saving warnings on incoming storms. The radio beam that shoots out of the center of this ball locates the storm and shows them how bad it is.
The heart of this is here in the klystron. The klystron is actually what forms this powerful beam that we're shooting upstairs. We're talking in excess of 750,000 watts.
A rare glimpse at the transmitter of a Doppler radar as technicians take it offline today for maintenance.
We're redoing a lot of those harnesses, a lot of those wiring, those pinouts, those cablings, all of that's getting redone.
This maintenance was originally scheduled for March 13th.
A whole bunch of cars that have just pulled over on the side of the road.
We had a bomb cyclone come through. We couldn't afford to let it go. We were supposed to have done this some time ago, but that's what happened in March. We couldn't let go of the radar. It was coming in hard.
This radar was critical during that infamous March blizzard, which also highlights the importance of keeping all the parts running.
It's the heart of everything that we base the science on.
When our radar is down like today, we rely on other radar sites to fill in the gaps. There's one in Pueblo, one in Goodland, Kansas, and another in Cheyenne. Even the one on the Grand Mesa reaches most of the mountains. There's also this backup radar near Denver, but it has much less power. Our weather picture here on the Front Range is just not complete unless this radar is up and running smoothly.
We're so used to having the technology that it's kind of hard to imagine not having it.
Meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen for Next.
The work was scheduled to last all week, though the text told Corey they got so much work done today, they think they'll fire that sucker back up by Wednesday. It's a sign for drivers outside a restaurant that is up for interpretation. That and your feedback next. It's a sign that clarity is kindness, and on the road, clarity is safety as well. Because this drive-through lane could also be, dive through, dine through. You're going through, so hold on, everybody. This is at the Popeyes Chicken on 104th in the Reunion area of Commerce City. Next viewer named Tom saw this. Start over, all right? You didn't do it right. Start over. Send pictures of the signs that make you do a double take to next@9news.com via email or use the hashtag #HeyNext. Kelsey Duckett writes in tonight about my interview with congressional candidate Lauren Boebert, saying, "Come on, I expect more out of you. Please push her on these issues. She is skirting your questions." You noticed that, did you, Kelsey? As always, I invite you to watch the full, unedited interviews. We do this with all of our political interviews on the Next YouTube channel.